this section, we're going to look at cross-cultural communication in persuasion. So what we're going to do is tackle one of the most important questions in global communication, which is how do we create persuasive messages that resonate across cultures? Imagine you're preparing a well-structured, persuasive presentation, only to realize that it's not landing with your international audience as you expected. This disconnect is often due to differences in cultural communication styles. And by understanding and respecting these differences, we can transform how our message is received. So in this section, I'll introduce you to 3 frameworks which will help you in understanding cross-cultural persuasion. First, we'll look at the differences between Western and Eastern approaches to persuasion. Then we'll explore the social identity approach, which helps us to consider how group dynamics and shared identity can affect intercultural persuasion. And then finally, we'll discuss Ehrenmeyer's cultural mapping approach, which provides an actionable set of insights into specific cultural preferences. So let's start with the broader philosophical approaches to persuasion in Western and Eastern cultures. In Western traditions, which are rooted in Aristotle's rhetoric, persuasion is structured and direct. Aristotle's principles of ethos, pathos, and logos, credibility, emotional appeal, and logical argument form the foundation of Western persuasion. Western audiences often expect clear, logical structures with evidence-based arguments that appeal to both the intellect and to the emotions. The goal is to present ideas in a way that influences opinions directly, often through well-organized arguments. In contrast, Eastern traditions, such as Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, take a more holistic approach to persuasion. Here are some key differences. Confucianism emphasizes persuasion through moral authority and relational harmony, focusing on setting an example rather than directly changing opinions. Taoism, on the other hand, values subtlety and indirectness, often using parables and narratives to suggest ideas rather than stating them outright. Buddhism encourages persuasion as an inner journey, using storytelling to foster reflection and self-realization. So understanding these differences is critical. Western audiences may expect a logical, structured argument, while Eastern audiences might respond better to narrative and indirect communication that invites them to find their own meaning. A recent approach to understanding intercultural persuasion is the social identity approach, which helps us to understand how group dynamics can influence communication across cultures. We talked about this in the very first module. In the social identity approach, which is grounded in social psychology, it suggests that people's group identities, such as their national, cultural, or professional identities, strongly influence how they interpret messages. When persuading across cultures, understanding an audience's social identity can enhance your message's impact. So here's how it works. Individuals will often categorize themselves and others into groups, creating in-groups, people we identify with, and out-groups, those we see as different. This categorization affects how people perceive trustworthiness, authority, and the relevance of a message. Another important thing to know in this is that identity is contextual. In other words, the identity can change or shift depending on the relevance of what's called the salience of the situation that that person finds themselves in. So how can we apply this in cross-cultural persuasion? The first thing to do as a persuader is to build in-group identification with your audience. When addressing a culturally diverse audience, find common values or experiences that create a sense of shared identity. Highlighting shared values such as respect for family or dedication to teamwork can foster an in-group feeling and make your message more relatable. Second, adapt to cultural norms of authority and trust. Some cultures may value authority figures, while others might value egalitarian relationships. Recognizing and respecting these preferences can make your message feel more authentic and aligned with the audience's social identity. Third, use group-appropriate language. Tailor your language to reflect the cultural values and norms of the group. Using familiar terminology, respectful greetings, culturally relevant examples can make your message feel like it's coming from someone within their in-group, which can enhance your persuasion. The social identity approach reminds us that persuasion isn't only about what we say, it's also about connecting on a shared social level. Building the sense of connection can be particularly powerful in intercultural settings. With these broader frameworks in mind, let's now look at Erin Meyer's culture maps, which provides specific strategies for adapting communication to cultural preferences. Meyer's culture map consists of 8 dimensions that describe how different cultures communicate, evaluate, and build trust. I'll focus on a few that are especially relevant for persuasion. First, communicating in low context versus high context cultures. In low context cultures, like the United States and Australia, communication is direct and explicit. In high context cultures, like Japan, meaning is conveyed more indirectly. If you're addressing a high context audience, try using more subtle language and leave room for shared understanding rather than explicit statement. So according to Meyer, applications first situations are where individuals are trained to begin with a fact, a statement, or an opinion, and then later add concepts to back up or explain their conclusion as necessary. The preference here is to begin a message or a report with an executive summary or bullet points. Discussions are approached in a practical, concrete manner. Theoretical or philosophical discussions are avoided in a business environment. Other cultures, she says, prefer a principles-first approach, beginning with theoretical foundations before moving to specific applications. This is as seen in France and Russia. Adjusting your approach to align with these preferences can make your message feel more relevant and credible. So in a principles-first approach, individuals have been trying to develop first a theory or complex concept before presenting a fact, a statement, or an opinion. The preference is to begin a message or report by building up a theoretical argument before moving on to a conclusion. The conceptual principles underlying each situation are valued. So, for applications first audiences, start by showing how your proposal solves a practical issue, then connect it to broader concepts. For principles first audiences, start with a broader theoretical framework before diving into specific examples. Now, when it comes to evaluation and feedback, Meyer says some cultures, like the Dutch, are much more comfortable with direct feedback, while other cultures, like Japan, provide feedback more indirectly. If you're persuading an indirect feedback audience, consider offering suggestions rather than critiques, as this may be received more positively. Okay, so lastly, when it comes to the idea of trust, Meyer argues that there are some who are task-based and other cultures that are more relationship-based. Task-based cultures build trust through competence, while relationship-based cultures build trust through personal connections. In relationship-based cultures like Brazil, for example, you'd need to spend more time on rapport building before launching into your message, as the trust you build relationally will make your message more persuasive. So here's some practical strategies for combining all of these 3 approaches. How can you bring these insights together for effective cross-cultural persuasion? Well, first, blend Western structure with Eastern subtlety. Using a logical organizational structure to satisfy Western preferences for clarity, but perhaps incorporate narratives or shared values that Eastern audiences might connect with. This blended approach offers the best of both worlds. Second, build group identification. Using the social identity approach, find shared values or experiences to establish a sense of in-group connection with your audience. Use the word we more often than the word I in your presentations and in your documents. Thirdly, adjust to Meyer's cultural dimensions. Tailor your message based on your audience's preferences as displayed in the culture map dimensions. Use applications first or principles first reasoning as appropriate and adapt your style to match their preferences to feedback and trust building. These combined approaches will help you create persuasive messages that resonate across cultures, allowing you to connect with audiences in ways that are both respectful and impactful. Okay, so thank you for joining on this section. I look forward to seeing how you apply these insights in your cross-cultural presentations. And there is more information in the course notes. And I'm also very happy to provide further information if required. Talk to you soon.